morning. I'm Michelle Charlton. I'm from Skills Education. Thanks for joining us. If this is your first Skills Education session, welcome. If you're back because this is part 3 of Deb Carr's series on 10 tips to do RPL better, thank you for joining us and welcome back. Now, I'm just going to run through a little bit of housekeeping before we let Deb launch into, as I said, her 3rd session in the 10-part series. Deb's going to be presenting all of the research about her RPL, all of the results about her RPL research and how RTOs can make assessment-only pathways a more efficient and effective option for their operations. So have a think about that while you're exploring the tabs in the top right-hand corner of your screen, because Deb's also put up a couple of handouts for today's session for you. And you'll also notice that we've got a few things in the chat already. So feel free to shout out and say hello in the chat window. Definitely encourage participation throughout the session that way. Now, I'd just like to let everyone know that today's session is being recorded. So after the live event has finished, you'll get a notification that the recording's available for view. You just go over to the Better portal, log in there, and anyone who's registered for today's session will be able to access the recording. On that note, big thanks to Better because they do support Skills Education Network by providing the technology for today's session. Keep an eye out too for that email that comes through from the Better team, because if you're looking for a PD record, it's that email that triggers the PD record. They're asking for feedback. When you fill out the feedback form, the PD record is triggered. You can submit it blank, but definitely all of our presenters get value from your feedback. Now that's the admin out of the way. As I said, Deb Carr is our special guest for this series. She's continuing what is a 10-part series on 10 tips to do RPL better. Now, in the previous 2 sessions, we've heard about the advantages of having competent and experienced staff who are solely dedicated to RPL and how that can be a really good business decision for RTOs, and how teaching RPL can help candidates move through that RPL process more smoothly, was what we talked about last week. Today, Deb's going to prompt us to think about social learning as an aspect of RPL practice. So can't wait to hear what's going to be coming up around that. To give a little bit of background on Deb, if you have been in our sessions before, you already know that Deb is perpetually enthusiastic about lifelong learning. You know that Deb has undertaken her Masters of Education on Global Learning, where her thesis was on the RPL candidate, a neglected stakeholder. So given that RPL is definitely a mandatory requirement for all RTOs in Australia, Deb's series is really promising to highlight an issue that needs to be addressed by all people delivering the training and assessment, as assessment-only pathway is a necessary option. So we're very, very lucky to have Deb with us, and we're looking forward to sharing what she has to offer in terms of today's session. So welcome to Deb.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Such a big intro. Thank you heaps. So these sessions are for RPL program managers and practitioners that seek to do RPL better. Today I will share a little bit about my research project and one other one actually that are relevant to this topic. I'll also share pre-recordings. Hi, Andy. Pre-recording interviews with our guest, Andy Brown, which I just see is here, thank goodness, and Jeffrey Leher. Hopefully he's here too. Andy comes to us from Quebec, Canada, where he is the pedagogical advisor for RPL at Champlain College. He describes his job as cheerleader-in-chief, supporting the RPL program in transport and logistics. He is also a published author and researcher of RPL. He is as much an RPL nerd as myself. Jeffrey Leher is the National Compliance Manager for the Scouts RTO. Jeffrey leads over 40 assessors in conducting RPL, the Institute's main pathway to credentialing. He also represents the industry on the Sports and Recreation IRC. Andy and Jeff are in our audience and welcome questions. Hopefully later I'll be able to give them the mic. A note for our international audience, context is the Australian VET system. So RPL assesses informal learning as per defined in our AQF. So as Michelle said, I've conducted this research as part of my Masters in Education at CDU. My current day job is with Better, where we do skills migration, skills assessment for migration, but we also do RPL, where I'm privileged to help other countries implement and improve their RPL frameworks. So my research revealed many problems associated with the practice of RPL, so no surprises there. As I continue to research, listen and practice, potential solutions are evolving. This 10-part series delivers 10 possible solutions to doing RPL better, mainly at program level. I make no claim of these being the only solutions, but I think they go a long way to doing RPL better because they speak directly to candidate experience. So we do have systemic problems in RPL in Australia. These sessions do also recognise that RPL can be done within well and better within the system that we do have. Australia's national competency-based RPL system is envied by many, many countries. The changing nature of work, globalisation, ageing demographics, and the rapid pace of technological advancement in the workplace drives the national imperative for RPL. COVID-19, yes, even reaches into RPL, has placed even more imperative on RPL. Efficient use of skills directly impacts our national economy and social fabric now more than ever. So this webinar is to inform your strategic decisions regards your RPL program and evidence and case studies of good practice. This is not necessarily a platform to check compliance or technical discussions. We do encourage you to share contacts in the pursuit of good RPL practice. So there are some handouts there. In particular, NCVR recently released a report exploring the RPL in Australian vet. Notably, RPL is declining. Only 3% of all assessment outcomes are RPL. Only 2.7% of our 4.2 million vet students utilise RPL. Hospitality, government, construction and engineering industries use RPL more. Domestic fee-for-service outfunds RPL than government. International fee-for-service, RPL is growing. This shows there is a market for those that can pay for it. In your handouts also, there's guest bio and their insights and tips to their good practice. The handout includes previous guests, a bonus for those one-time attendees. Please email myself for further questions. Please utilise, hi Jeffrey, please utilise the chat box. So throughout this session, I would like you to think about some things that might come to your mind, benefits for RTOs and also RPL candidates of social collaborative learning, and jot that into the chat box and we can learn together. And I will put that into our slides. So other sessions, as Michelle said, this is one of 10. The next one is on around advertise carefully to build accurate expectations. One of the main reasons for dropout is that candidates didn't realise what they were getting into. And so advertising carefully contributes to your retention rates. If you feel that your good practice reflects one of those particular topics, please email me. Your handouts include a bit of a blurb more about those sessions. So along with my own research, there is much research that indicates RPL can be isolating for candidates and that groups can benefit the process in more ways than one. We've had this problem for many years and we are not alone. Back in 2013, WA Department of Training put out their RPL guide, which incidentally is quite a good guide and is a handout there for you as well. The guide recognised that RPL in 2013 was practiced in a way that was isolating for the candidates. In particular, they said that evidence gathering for a portfolio, which is the method we primarily use, is isolating and does not always build confidence in people making tentative steps towards learning and work. RPL was set up for those non-formal learners. So Rowan Clayton did a study back in 2009 where she found that even when some learners were granted RPL for parts of their course, they preferred to undertake the full course because they preferred social interaction. The problem is global. The International Labour Organization, ILO, have put out the RPL learning package, which is really good, for program managers and national policymakers. This has been in response to increased global interest in initiating and improving national RPL frameworks from countries all over the world. So ILO identified a major obstacle for the portfolio assessment method, which is what we primarily use here in Australia, is actually the preparation of the portfolio itself. This again was supported in my research. Collating evidence is a format that's acceptable for your assessor is a formidable challenge. So the ILO shares a strategy to address this challenge. Convene groups specifically to share experience and to learn from one another, thus enabling all participants to proceed with the preparation of their own portfolio for RPL with greater assurance. So additionally, Clayton's study, where she talked to candidates back in 2009, found that candidates stressed the importance of being able to discuss issues with people going through the same processes and experience. So I interviewed, as part of my study, both assessors and candidates. Assessors had collectively conducted over 5,000 RPL assessments across all AQF levels, all RTO types, many different training packages, and many different industries. 6% of all difficulties were around the candidate feeling isolated. 10 assessors explicitly stated candidates feel isolated and alone. These challenges are never in isolation. Feelings of isolation may also correlate with mindset challenges such as motivation and loss of confidence in doing RPL. Feeling alone and unsupported is in the context of candidate-assessor contact, but also in the context of candidate-to-candidate contact. So digging a little deeper into the problem, isolation theme was around feeling alone and unsupported, and also that they didn't get to talk to anyone. Candidates felt a sense of deep isolation and that they were working on their own without a cohort to bounce ideas off. Assessors indicated that candidates feel overwhelmed and pressured with the perception that the process did not care about them, disregarded them, and left them to their own means. Candidates freak out because they think their situation is unique. So assessors, talking with them, kind of focused on candidates' need for assessor contact. Only a couple indicated that candidates sought contact with other candidates. However, when I talked to candidates, they did express a desire and value to have contact with other candidates. The loudest and clearest message I heard in my research was that having contact with other candidates would boost morale and persistence by contributing to their sense of this is achievable. No candidates that I researched had contact with other candidates. There was no mechanism at all. In fact, they were relieved to hear through their interviews with myself that their difficulties and mindset angst was not unique to them. They felt assured to some level that they weren't the only ones suffering. Candidates wished that they had contact with others. Some of the things that they said were, we're all in silos. I feel very disconnected to other candidates. Contact with other students will be really valuable because you have those self-doubts. Find support, a mentor, and somebody who has done it that gives you confidence you can do it. RPL is all about you. and your role, it can undermine your confidence when you come against those things that you're not doing and that you feel you're expected to be doing. It's really nice to hear that other candidates confirm that RPL is hard. It's not me. So this is one solution to facilitate social learning. It maintains morale. They're able to talk with each other. Did you have a problem with this or that? It's nice to see I'm not the only one with these challenges. I thought I was going crazy. Why is this so hard? It allows them to learn how to do RPL, particularly to collate evidence. What did you use to prove this or that? How did you present it? It also helps translate and connect the unit to your work context. Is this cheating? So I'd like you to think about this as we listen to Andy in our interview and think, is candidates convening and talking about their experience and connecting that with the unit, is that amounts to cheating in any way, shape or form? Can you submit your comments throughout the interview and we can address it towards the end. Hi, Andy. How are you going?
I'm doing great, Deb. How are you doing?
Thanks for joining us. I'm very well, thank you. Let's get straight into it.
No problems at all. Yeah.
Tell me about your program, Andy.
Okay, so I'm Andy Brown. I manage an RPL service for a technical qualification at the college level in transportation logistics. As you can see on the screen, the way that we deliver this RPL service is in two modalities. The first is what we call the intensive model, and then there's the individual model. So the intensive model is we're with the candidates Monday to Friday from 9 till 4, what used to be 9 to 4, not in the COVID-19 situation. It lasts for 17 weeks, and it's basically for recent immigrants or very recent immigrants to come in and transfer their knowledge and skills from a different context to a North American context. The college I work at is in Montreal, in Quebec, in Canada. And basically, these are all TNR professionals and they want to enter the workforce. So they need to convert their knowledge and skills from another North American, North African, West African, Asian context and to a North American context. So their primary motivation is get a job. These people are highly skilled. They have 5-10 years managerial level experience. They have degrees, they have master's degrees, very motivated people. The RPL individual is for people that are already working in the sector, or they're not working in the sector, but they want to get back to their passion, their sector, which is transportation logistics. Again, they're all transportation logistics professionals. Some of them are local Quebecers, Canadians that have maybe left high school. They've worked their way up through the system, and they've hit that glass ceiling where they need a piece of paper to get to the next level in the development of their career. So they basically want to get a better job. So just to summarize, the intensive cohort model, get a job, enter the job market. The individuals get a better job.
Okay. So that's a long RPL program in Australia speak. Is there an amount of learning that goes on in that 17 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think there always is. I mean, if you've worked in Algeria, say, as an import-export specialist, mm-hmm. You come here, you want to work in import-export, but guess what? The regulations are different. So you cannot demonstrate Canadian regulations coming from Algeria. So sure, but the processes are virtually the same. It's just the regulations. So yes, there's going to be some learning in there. I also would like, I think going further, I think if I, for example, applied to be a teacher here in a high school, I'm sure there's some things that I have to consider myself pretty experienced after 30 years, but probably a part of that qualification will be the history of the education system in Quebec. I don't know that. I can read it and learn it to get the qualification. So I think everybody has a gap in their place.
Particularly because how prescriptive the units are. You
know.
So they're working together on their RPL. Some may say that there's an amount of cheating that's happening there. In our country, a lot of the time it's an unsupported activity. They're on their own. If they've got the skills and knowledge, they need to go find that evidence. What do you say about that?
I mean, we evaluate people using authentic assessment tools. There's no collaboration on that evaluation, but the preparation before the evaluation, sure, there's collaboration. If somebody's got a gap, somebody else could collaborate with that person and help them learn that little bit that's missing from their knowledge base. The other thing in the qualification we have, it's transportation logistics. Even my content specialists, they're amazing. They really are amazing, but they don't know everything of the qualification at all, you know, because they've worked for 30 years in road transportation. They are an expert on the management of road transportation. But if you ask them, how about international transportation? Oh, no, not really. Yeah, but they would very quickly be able to learn that, because a lot of the processes are transferable from one domain to another domain. But I don't think anybody knows everything.
Yeah, and that in my research as well, it reminded them about things that they'd learned in the past, but they had to brush up on a lot of that theoretical knowledge around assessment.
I think brushing up is a great way to put it. It's a great way to put it.
So do you think there's are they also helping each other around the process of RPL?
Oh yeah, I think that's so important, that the RPL process itself can be a little bit nebulous sometimes. And if somebody is got the idea of the process, sure, why not teach it to somebody else? Reduce the barrier of them actually progressing through the progress. I think if somebody was doing it, and it just makes no sense to me on a progression or even on a humanitarian level, why would you make 10 people, keep them isolated and say, okay, you need to work the process out for yourself? Yeah, whereas you could connect with people that maybe even been through the process. They're not helping them with the content. They're helping them with the process. And also sharing of ideas. It's like, no, I did it. You can do it too. I know it seems a bit daunting. I know it seems a bit complicated. Here, this is what you need to do here. It's not as difficult as you think it is. Here's a solution for this issue.
So, Andy, you did your thesis on persistence for RPL candidates, or RAC candidates, you call them there. Is there, how does social learning, or that social, or having contact with other candidates help them that you found out in your research?
I think it's deep down, we are pack animals. We like being, we're a herd species, you know. We interact with each other and we support each other. We build communities. We talk all the time about communities of practice, learning teams, all sorts of things like that. This is how we are, as we're not individuals. We want to belong to a team. So, the difference between the two models we have is, I think there's definitely more persistence in the cohort model. And I think the social aspects there as well, that they can support each other. They have a lot more contact time with each other. If somebody's feeling not good about something, say, no, you can do it. They're supportive of each other. And I think that helps them progress through the process. We try and do that with the individuals, but they have a lot less contact time with each other. And they're busy people. They're working full time. So they don't have as much of that social connection. But even saying that, like we have we'll have a Barbie every now and again, and try and get people to relax and socialize with each other a little bit more. I make a good point of always going in and trying to connect with each individual to make them feel special and believe that they're part of something in a community.
Yeah, well, my research subjects felt that their assessors didn't really have any skin in the game whether they were successful or not.
I mean, we have some of the most, we call it, I don't know if it's called the same terminology, a potluck.
Mm.
Everybody brings some food. Oh, I mean, I like my food, and I get to eat the food from all over the world. It's amazing, and we can relax. I've had people, putting Indian music on and doing Indian dancing, and they got all the teachers go, the content specialists go to this as well, for the free food. But then we get that connection. When we finish, we normally go out for meals, stuff like that. We connected on.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be wonderful if our funding model allowed for that? And you did mention before that you're very grateful for your funding model that allows.
It's just
so much. Yeah.
So lucky that the Ministry of Education has invested money in this. They've definitely got skin in the game, and their funding model allows us to provide all these services. I mean, my driving force is always the primary objective of the candidate. We're here to make that happen. Now, for them, they maybe need the piece of paper, or they need the conversion of skills. But the qualification is not the objective. It's what they're going to do with the qualification. That's the primary objective. And you need to talk to people and need to know what that is to see. And I do that a lot when I'm advising at the start. It's like, my first question is, why do you want this qualification?
Yeah.
And what I want to hear is, get a job, get a better job, because then we can help you, because that's what our service is geared up for.
Well, actually, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think RPL is a career management mechanism, and the successful outcome is not always the qualification. It's around how am I going to improve myself around learning and earning, and this, like, it's an audit where I'm at right now and how do I get to where I want to go.
Absolutely. I mean, we work again, we're very fortunate with the funding model. Somebody comes back to us after they get the qualification in 3 years' time, we'll help them out. Hey, you need to meet this person to go back through the job search process, do a little bit of a strategy on moving your career to the next level. We can do that, because eventually that person is going to be a manager, and that person will hire our graduates.
Yeah, it's good thinking, number 99.
Sorry?
Good thinking, number 99.
I mean, my long-term goal is this self-sustaining model where graduates from 10 years ago hire graduates from today. And once I've achieved that, and I think it's all in place, that's time for me to retire or move on to the next thing. I've taken this thing as far as I can go.
So that leads me into my last question. Your role there is RAC Pedagogical Advisor.
Correct.
What is that? We don't even approach RPL as a pedagogical policy understanding to RPL. So tell me about your role as a pedagogical advisor.
I mean, overall, I manage everything. So I'll design the schedules. My biggest job is to monitor the quality of the content specialist candidate interactions, and that's everything. It's monitoring the quality of the resources on the website. I co-designed the evaluation tools with the content specialists. They bring their technical expertise, I bring my educational expertise, and then it's a negotiation. It's like what they feel comfortable with as well. It's like, you know what, we could do this. What about that? What about this? Because they're not teachers, they're not educators, they're people and I don't want them to be educators. I want to help them develop into educators, and they are educators now. Yeah, after 10 years of working together, some of them are superb educators, absolutely amazing. But it's like I need the technical expertise, and then it's my job to harness that technical expertise. So that's one side of it. When candidates first come in, I'm the first line of contact. The first thing I do is I screen the CVs. Some people, I just direct them straight over to the 1-year course. If I can read enough in between them, then I meet them for an hour and a half and I explain, everything to them. And actually, in the COVID situation, this makes it easier to do that because I can just have a quick Zoom meeting with them. But I explain what we can do for them, what the different types of services, what fits in with them, what are their objectives, can we help them? If I can't help them, and then I'll try and find another college that can help them. I've even had people, I said, like, I have no understanding why you need this qualification. I don't think it's going to help you. You already know way too much. You're at the next level. You might even need to go and get a master's or something like that to move to the next level. So sometimes I try and dissuade people from taking the service.
By understanding their career direction.
Absolutely. It's got to be. It's like dating. It's got to be a good match. What we have is what you need, and if those things go together, then the process will work. But if there's it's disjointed, it's just not going to work. It's such a tough process.
All right, Andy.
I'm the cheerleader in chief. Keep everybody going. Motivation, engagement, everybody.
But there is that pedagogical understanding that underlies all that, but that informs your practice and management of that.
I mean, primarily it's an evaluation process.
Yeah.
How could you do that without pedagogical understanding? You know, it's all about curriculum alignment, the alignment of the tools with the knowledge types and the cognitive processes, and making them authentic. You know, they should be as close as possible to the tasks in the workplace.
Yeah. So on that point, thanks very much, Andy.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Deb. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody for listening.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks, Andy. So we do have a couple of questions there. Hopefully we can hand over the mic. There was a little bit of interest in the careers advice at the start. You mentioned in your thesis that you suggest that transformative learning is a potential byproduct of RPL, primarily through self-reflection. How can RPL promote self-reflection in the context of career management? And can you give us an example? Have you got the mic there? We can hear you, Andy. Yes, you're back in the webinar and we're listening to, did you hear my question? We're interested in your...
Mic on.
Okay. So the question is, in your research, you said that transformative learning is a potential byproduct of RPL, primarily through self-reflection. And you kind of touched on that in regards to careers management. How can RPL promote self-reflection, and can you give us an example?
I think that whole process of RPL is a metacognitive one. It's assessing what you know, and what you know you don't know. So I mean that's transformative in itself, because it gives you a little sort of this is where I am now. This is things I need to go in. But I think also the transformative process is, for careers particularly, is really important for, yes, I can do it, particularly when I'm working with recent immigrants. I mean, these are exceptional people. They're exceptional professionals, but they have incredible self-doubt. And it's completely understandable, because it's complete unknown. They've moved to a completely different continent. Everything's new, everything's alien, and they have a lot of self-doubt. So that process of moving from self-doubt to, yes, I can, and then going on and actually getting the job, which reinforces that they can, it's a completely transformative process from when they started to when they ended. Because at the start, it was just racked with self-doubt and, oh, I can't do this. They're so uncertain. And then they get a job and they start building their careers and they get on with their lives. That's a transformation.
Yeah. And we're talking about building a sense of self-efficacy, which leads on to greater amount of persistence, which your thesis showed evidence of as well. Do you think that group RPL contributes towards that sense of self-efficacy? Because we're looking at that collaborative space.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all experienced it in many, many different contexts. If we're in a group of friends, I'm not saying you're friends in the RPL process, but if you're with a group of friends and you have a self-doubt about something, your friends normally just rally around and say, no, of course you can. Of course you can do it, Andy. You've done this, you've done that. We're supportive of each other. And we make the other people that are around us believe in themselves. So that's that social aspect that you can do it. They even might point out things that you say, well, Hunter, you did that over there. You've already demonstrated you can do that. You just need to transfer it to this new context now. So they'll even highlight things where you've already demonstrated that knowledge or skill. You just have to do it in a new context now, and you might not have thought about it yourself.
Was there anything that you wanted to address, Andy, that you felt that you might have missed during our interview?
No, it's that I think you nailed it in your research, and what I found most striking from your research was the fact that the people that you interviewed as candidates were RPL assessors, and they found all. I mean, like these. If you were going to pick a group of people who were like the best candidates in the world to understand the RPL process, it would be RPL assessors, and they still found it a very challenging process to go through, which suggests that isolation and that sense of self-efficacy is so important. Just the connections. Oh, no, you can do it. You can do it. I did it. Yeah, you can do it. That self-belief, it's everything. Because when we're in isolation, we always think it's me. It's not the process. It's me. I'm at fault. I'm not able to do this. I don't have the abilities to do this. We'll even say things like, I'm too stupid to do this. Yeah, I can't do this. This isn't for me. Whereas if we talk to everybody, when everybody's in this same boat, then it makes it easy. A problem shared is a problem halved.
And peers have that non-threatening dynamic rather than approaching your assessor.
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Peers, when you can have that discussion with peers other than your assessor, that's a different dynamic that you've got. It's non-threatening. There's no judgment there that you feel that you might have if you approached your assessor with those self-doubts.
And I think this is something I did make a note of. Peers can also have insights that assessors can't. Assessors haven't been through the process or might not have been the process. They have been from their side, but not from the candidate side. Whereas peers are going through the same process and they could have insights that assessors couldn't give. Not through any fault of the assessors. They just haven't been in that position before.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. We're running out of time. We're going to move on to Jeffrey's interview, and we'll talk more and chat more at the end.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me here today.
Thank you, Andy. So next we have Jeffrey. Please again put down your thoughts and your questions as we progress through this interview. So thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
Welcome.
I will get straight into it. Tell me why this topic appeals to your RPL practice.
I think that social interaction in RPL is important because it actually gets better outcomes for the students. They engage more with understanding and learning about how they translate that speak into I do have the skills and knowledge here. So often it's that lack of understanding of being able to get that language right. And social gets that professional input from the assessor, but it also gets their peer recognition along the way as well.
Yep, so they're talking to each other, and that helps them learn the language that they need for the RPL. That it's not that they are learning the knowledge; they're just learning the correct words to use.
they're learning the words to use, they're learning the RPL language, but they're also recognizing their own skills and knowledge is at the standard that is expected, because many question that as they come into it, and
They
then
question that
realise
themselves.
they question themselves, and then by working with their peers who are also doing the same thing, they realise they do have the relevant skills and knowledge.
Yeah, it's like a litmus test.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you mentioned a couple of stories before that. What does that look like? What's that social collaborative learning with RPL look like?
Yes, so I'll give you the two stories. One is a range of guys and girls, youth members in Scouts who've been participating in the program for 3 to 4 years, and they're looking at a certificate to in business. Working through with them things like communicating in the workplace, working effectively with others, respecting diversity, workplace health and safety. These are things that they've been doing along the way, but for them, they've been participating in activities with friends. Doesn't necessarily equate to the language that is in a unit of competency. So for them, they're learning that language. They're also getting that recognition of, when I did this activity, that is an example, that is evidence towards that unit, which they wouldn't get that understanding without the support of their assessor. So
a little bit of meta learning going on there. They've actually now being able to find the words to express what they've learned.
Yes.
In skills language.
Definitely, which can benefit them down the track, as in they understand the language in an improved manner, and it can make it easier for them to participate in the same process at a later date for a different qualification or a different way. So yes, it works well for them. Certificate for in workplace health and safety. When the candidates all walked into the room, I certainly looked around and saw the amount of grey hair and wrinkles said that there was a lot of experience there. So it very quickly became let's get your stories, let's engage with what you've got, rather than a training and assessment. It became an assessment situation, an RPL assessment situation very quickly. And they came from a variety of workplaces, but they all had good workplace health and safety knowledge. So drawing on those range of experiences opened each of them up to a better level of understanding as to how their workplace health and safety knowledge could be applied in different contexts, as well as recognizing that they had it.
So you were there trying to tease out that skills language as the assessor.
Yes.
And from my research, there's candidates want that interaction with their assessor because it helps them learn that language and translation. But then there's that dynamic between the candidates as well. So if you moved out of the room and they were just in the room together, how would being together help them in that process?
Being together in just without any facilitation, they would probably cluster to their like-minded or their industry specialties, and so it probably wouldn't help as much. But socially working together across sectors, across different workplaces and industries, it still helps bring out that peer-to-peer recognition. But what the biggest advantage from my perspective is that they recognise the applicability of a general skill like workplace health and safety across sectors. So someone working in construction can see how they can apply their workplace health and safety skills and knowledge working on the docks or someone working in stevedoring on the docks realizes how they can use their workplace health and safety knowledge in the printing industry. Even though they may not come from those other industries, they come to recognize the transferability of their work health and safety knowledge, as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be really handy in an interview, for example.
Yes, it would.
So do you think the candidates have difficulties in collating their evidence?
Yes. Look, I think it's less difficult in that social situation. Now, and I say that because having dealt with individuals who are doing RPL by themselves, again, a lot of it comes down to translating, but also what is required of me, how much is required, what would be acceptable, is very different to when you're working with a group of people. When you're working with a group of people and they're putting someone puts an example up and others go, yeah, I've got something similar, or I could provide almost the same thing. Suddenly there is that understanding amongst the group that, yes, all right, here's the right level of evidence, here's the acceptable types of evidence. And so they move quicker with that. But also by having that social situation, you've got things scheduled. Having things scheduled, it might mean we're only meeting for an hour, but we're meeting for an hour on this date at this time.
Yeah,
gives them a deadline as a commitment, and they deliver on that commitment. Usually an individual RPL process is a lot more open-ended, and it says submit it when you're ready. There's no last minute deadline that I need to submit to when I submit when I'm ready.
Yeah, I asked my research candidates about, some tips that they would give to RTOs to make it easier, and it came out a structured flexibility. We need deadlines, but they need to be flexible. And we otherwise we're busy, we're mid-career, we have families, we want to progress our career. We need deadlines to keep to. And groups do that, do you think?
Groups do that. Groups do that because by default of not wanting to let others down, people deliver. They might leave it to the last minute, but they deliver on time because they don't want to be the one left out, or be the one holding the rest of the group up because they haven't delivered. So that social situation, while you can still be flexible if they haven't delivered one or two items, it generally results in them having the evidence that has been requested by a time because they don't want to let others down.
So there's been three benefits really for the social learning aspect of group RPL, and that is learning the language, the meta learning with the younger ones, coming to an awareness of what I did learn, and articulating that in skills language to empower myself in my learning and earning journey. Then there was with the Cert 4 guys in WHS, learning how those skills transfer across industry sectors, being able to see the bigger picture of my skill, and having that professional networking as well. And then the last one was seeing how to collate the evidence and how to kind of package it all together. And you touched on this at other point too, and my previous interview with Andy from Canada, he has rolling enrollments where in any one time there's someone that's already done it. It can be done, and this is how I did it, an example of how I did it. And so having those ones in the room together gives you this can be done. And a lot of my research candidates said this is impossible, and they were assessors. So yeah, it gives you a sense of efficacy that we can do this.
And I see that, and I'd actually personally like to give that a go, that rolling thing. But I have certainly seen that as a result of participating in and completing an RPL assessment, that the candidates are better prepared for next time they undertake or consider an RPL assessment.
That was one
So
of the
I
things that,
am keen to,
yeah,
yes.
it was one of the things that the research subjects said. They said, don't give us a cluster to start off with, just give us a simple unit to start off with, because then we get it and we feel confident about being able to do it, and the others are so much more easier.
So yes, I'd be keen to learn to try more of Andy's ideas as well.
Yeah, I'll have to get you guys in touch with each other.
We will.
Thanks very much for your time, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So Jeffrey's here. Hopefully, he's just getting himself the mic to answer a couple of questions. Did anyone have a question for Jeffrey in his application of RPL? So that's primarily what Scouts do. That's their primary pathway to credentialing is through RPL. So, yeah. I'd just like to share something from Bowen's study in 2009 while we're waiting for Jeffrey to come on board. She interviewed candidates, and that was pretty much the last research project that we have around asking candidate voice, and said that people who have been involved in group RPL felt this approach was particularly valuable and helped them to reflect better on their experiences. They said, it was great to have people going through the same process as you, challenging what you had to say. So not just agreeing and supporting, but actually challenging you on what and your claim in a safe place. Listening to what they had to say also made me think about a lot of things I had done, but probably wouldn't have remembered myself. So this is about remembering and being challenged in that safe social collaborative space that we haven't actually touched on. Yes, okay, Jeff, did you do RPL individually before? If so, do you see the difference with group? Good question.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I certainly have done a number of RPLs before that are individual and still do that. But in saying that, I've come to appreciate the group dynamics within RPL. So, as Deb just said, Scouts as an RTO predominantly do RPL. So there is a lot of individual, but there is also the group. So it is a bit of both. I've come to prefer the group.
Why is that?
As an assessor, I get just as much out of it as I believe the students do. I actually get to see the engagement, and I get to participate in a greater level of assisting individuals than just a one-on-one situation.
That's interesting you should say that, because some of the assessors did say that they trainers like to see, there's a buzz in helping people learn, and that you see the light bulb moment and you see people progress in their learning, and it brings joy to trainers, and that's why they like what they do. But that joy was missing in the assessment. So that's interesting that you say, as in group RPL, that buzz is kind of brought back to you a little bit. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes. I was just reading Carmel's question there, and I do oversee in group RPL processes, candidates come to the realisation they don't have the knowledge and skills. I would say that, yes, I've seen that. I've seen that from two levels. One is the candidate realising, and the rest of the group would have already have noted it, usually noticed it beforehand, and would agree with them. Now, in some cases that's about, but you're only just below, we can help you through. In other cases, it's about, no, you're really not at the level. And as the assessor, there's very little you need to say. It is more, look, let's talk about what you need to do to learn more. Maybe talk about a course, go gain some experience, what you need to do to get to the right level. In the majority, the group are very nice about it and give them that same information of, all right, here's how you could get more skills, here's what you need to know better. But they certainly will come to that realization. You will usually see the rest of the group come to the realization before them.
It's interesting, and they learn and they exit that experience without a scar.
Yes,
which is important for further learning as well.
Yes. So the other side to that is that I've had a recent one that was an individual RPL, and they were looking at a diploma level qualification. They were not comfortable that they had the skills and knowledge. I felt they did. And so what we did was looked at the certificate 4, and they breezed through it. And they realized then that, wow, that was simple for me. That really was the right below the level I'm at. Yes, I will now actually apply myself against the diploma. So sometimes the RPL situation can put people off because they're not certain if they've got the skills and knowledge. Once they get into it, they go, oh, I am actually here. So it does actually work both ways. They might realize they don't have the knowledge, or they might realize they do have the knowledge.
Yeah, when I was in Germany, I went to a project called Valicom, and they were, it was applied research as well. So they were doing it as well as gathering data. And we were talking about the self-assessment, and I said, do you think that that's accurate? And I know Wendy has a point of view here. And she said 50-50. It really, sometimes they know what they know and sometimes they don't. It is really just a mechanism, I think, to start them thinking about it. But it's not an accurate measure.
Yeah. And it is, look, I'm reading Wendy's comment there, and yes, look, we could utilize it more. We could certainly utilize RPL more. Certainly, we've got a lot of programs, not just in Australia, but worldwide, where there's a lot of non-formal education occurring that could down the track result in formal outcomes. So we could do that a lot better, not just here in Australia, but internationally as well. So yeah, I agree, Wendy. Wish we could see more of it.
Thank you, Jeff. While we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, we've only got 2 minutes, but I've been gathering a little bit from the feedback and the chat and more conversations with yourself and Andy around the benefits to add to this slide. I see that it challenges my claim in a safe environment, and I don't walk away scarred. It contributes to my professional reflection. I move more quickly throughout the process. It also contributes to me meeting the deadlines. So they're all the not so obvious benefits of that collaborative space for RPL. One more question and we've got to go.
Over to you,
Jeff.
How do you facilitate social learning? What techniques, forums, tools do you use? Look, it's, for me, the biggest technique that I use, because in these situations we're about assessment, not necessarily about learning, but the learning occurs as a result of the social situation, is I ensure that we have short personal stories in that, in the engagement with, why do I know this? So it's a quick, why do you know this? Where's your experience? Short personal stories brings people to understand the other aspects and where other people engage with it across sectors, across industries, but we're all talking the same skill. So WHS was the example I used earlier. Often that works across industries very well.
Yes, good answer. Those storytelling. And I don't have to use vet speak for that.
No.
So I guess it's not cheating. I don't believe it is cheating. You cannot fabricate your experience, but you can better articulate it. And I think that's the major benefit of the collaborative space for RPL. Hi, Michelle.
Hello. What a great discussion. I really liked the point that you just made, Jeffrey, about it is an assessment-only pathway, but some of the learning comes out of that social collaboration. So very interesting to hear that, and also Andy's insights from right across the ocean. Some things aren't that different after all.
Definitely.
It's not cheating, Andy says. It's still need to demonstrate knowledge, skills through evaluation. So Andy, the word that Andy uses with evaluation are those testing, are those assessment tools that Wendy asked about before the interview, the skills test and other such ones. So that's the evaluation. And the collaborative space is preparing for that.
Yeah, I mean, evaluation can be done in many different ways. It could be credit transfer or previous qualification. It could be an interview. It could be an assignment. It could be an artifact from the workplace. But we also design real authentic assessments that are basically just workplace tasks. And most people choose to do those because they can choose how they want to be evaluated.
Yeah, and they're validated, aren't they, Andy?
Yeah. I mean, they're co-designed with me and the content specialists who are experts from industry. And basically, it's just a job task.
Yeah. Well, we'll end on that note. Thank you so much, Andy and Jeff, for coming on board. You're our first guest. 3 times we've been trying to give our guests the mic, and we've nailed it this time. Thanks so much for your technological help behind the scenes too, Michelle.
No problem. That's what we're here for. So it's been wonderful to see Deb's vision for these series come to fruition by allowing and having, live faces talking and being able to answer the questions in real time. So that's been wonderful. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate the fact that you've given your time to support Deb in her session today, and for everyone joining us with the skills education program. So on that, we'll wrap it up. Definitely keep an eye out, because Deb does have a couple of other sessions in the next few weeks, and I'm just going to drop the links to those in the chat now. Of course, you can book those in, and even if you are interested in looking at the 10th series on the Better portal, there's still the link there to be able to purchase the recording for the previous sessions. But on that note, I think we've had another good RPL chat for the week, and I hope that it is providing some thought provocation into practice. So very much appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to seeing you on another Skills Ed session again soon.
Bye for now.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much.